I was folding laundry when my phone rang. Nothing unusual about that, except for the tone of panic in my daughter's voice. "Mom," Jasmine said, breathless, like she'd been running. "Don't freak out, okay? I just need to tell you something before you see it." My heart clenched. "See what, baby?" There was a pause, the kind that fills a room with invisible smoke. "The car," she whispered. "It's gone." I froze mid-motion, the towel slipping from my hands onto the floor. "What do you mean gone?" "It's not stolen," she rushed to say. I sold it. "But I can explain everything, I promise." I swear, for a few seconds, I didn't even hear my own heartbeat. The words didn't fit together. Sold it? My car? The one I'd spent 7 years paying off, bit by bit, while working double shifts at the clinic? "Jasmine, you... what?" My voice cracked, rising and trembling at the same time. "Please don't yell, okay? I didn't have a choice. Terrence." The moment she said his name, I felt my blood run cold. Terrence. Her boyfriend. The same boy who'd borrowed money from me just until payday. The same boy who smiled too easily and worked too little. "Don't tell me this has anything to do with him," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Silence, then a shaky exhale. "He got in trouble. Some guys he gambled with came looking for him. They threatened to hurt him, Mom. I couldn't just let them." "You sold my car to pay off his debt?" I screamed before I could stop myself. The words echoed in my tiny kitchen like a thunderclap. "You know it sounds bad, but it was just money, Mom. You can get another car." "Just money? That car was my independence, my freedom. Do you even understand what I went through to keep it?" She started crying. "I'm sorry. I thought I was helping." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down before I fell. The car wasn't just transportation. It was my proof that I could stand on my own 2 feet again after her father left. It was every tired morning, every overtime hour, every meal I skipped so she could eat better. And she sold it for a man who couldn't even keep a steady job. I looked at the window, at the empty driveway, the oil stain where my silver Toyota used to sit. The space looked so bare, like a part of me had been ripped out. Tears burned my eyes, but behind them was a growing storm of rage and heartbreak. How could my own daughter betray me like this? All those years of raising her alone, the nights I stayed up when she was sick, the extra shifts, the college fund I tried to start but never could finish. I thought I was teaching her to be strong, to respect herself, to respect me. Instead, she'd chosen a man who gambled away her mother's hard work. I wanted to drive to her apartment, but I didn't even have a car anymore. The irony was a knife twist in my chest. So I called her again. She didn't answer. Then again, still nothing. By the 5th call, I threw my phone on the couch and buried my face in my hands. I couldn't believe this was my life, betrayed by my own blood. After a long silence, I finally pulled out my laptop and checked my savings. Just $423 left. Between rent, utilities, and groceries, it wouldn't last 2 weeks. The world felt smaller, colder. My daughter had made a choice, and it wasn't me. When the sun went down, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where my car keys used to hang. It was the only sound in the house, the quiet, cruel ticking of the wall clock. Each tick felt like another second of a dream I'd built collapsing. And somewhere between anger and sorrow, I made a silent promise to myself. This time, I wouldn't fall apart. I'd already survived one man walking out on me. I could survive my daughter's betrayal too. But first, I had to find her. I had to hear it say it to my face, because something inside me, deep down in the place where mothers know, told me there was more to the story than she'd said. And if I was right, the truth would hurt even worse. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a picture of Jasmine and Terrence sitting in front of a poker table, stacks of cash between them. The caption read, "She's grown now. Let her live." My breath caught in my throat. Whoever sent that, they weren't just taunting me. They were warning me. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, heart pounding, mind already racing. I didn't even taste my coffee. I just threw on my coat, called a cab, and rode across town to Jasmine's apartment. I hadn't been there in months, not since Terrence moved in. Even then, I'd felt something was off. The place had started to smell like stale smoke and regret, like a home that had stopped being a sanctuary and started being a hiding place. When the cab pulled up, I could see the blinds were half broken, the porch light flickering weakly in the gray morning. I climbed the stairs and knocked. Once, twice, nothing. I banged louder. "Jasmine, open this door right now!" For a moment, all I heard was the hum of the street below. Then, the slow creak of the door unlocking. She stood there, hair messy, eyes puffy and red. "Mom!" I didn't wait. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was a disaster. Clothes everywhere, empty beer bottles, fast food containers stacked on the table. It smelled like cheap cologne and cigarettes. "Where is he?" I asked. My voice didn't even sound like mine. She flinched. "Terrence isn't here." I scanned the room. The duffel bag on the couch, half zipped. "You're packing." Her silence was my answer. "Jasmine, look at me." I grabbed her arm. "Why would you sell my car? My car, Jasmine, the one I worked my whole life for." Tears welled up again. "I told you, Mom, he owed people money. They said they'd hurt him if he didn't pay. And you believe them? You gave away something that didn't belong to you." "I didn't have a choice," she shouted, pulling away. "You don't understand. They came to the apartment. They banged on the door in the middle of the night. Terrence was terrified. I thought they were going to kill him." "Did he even tell you what he did with the money?" I asked. She hesitated. That split second told me everything. "Don't lie to me." She swallowed hard. "He said it was for debt, but I think he gambled again." I let out a bitter laugh. "You think? Jasmine, baby, that boy has been lying to you since day one." Her face twisted in pain. "He loves me, Mom." "No, Jasmine. He loves what you give him. And now you've given him everything, even what wasn't yours to give." She sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. For a moment, I almost reached out, that old instinct to comfort her. But then I remembered the empty driveway. The humiliation, the years of sacrifice she'd erased in one reckless choice. I stood there, my voice quieter but sharper. "You don't even realize it yet, but you didn't just lose my car. You lost my trust." She looked up, eyes swollen. "I can make it right. I'll get the money back." "How?" She didn't answer. I sighed and looked around again, then noticed something that made my stomach drop. On the counter, next to her purse, was a pawn receipt. Vehicle, title, Toyota Camry, sold $8,500. After all those years of paying nearly 25 grand with interest, she'd let it go for scraps. I turned to her. "Where's the rest of it? What happened to the money?" She bit her lip. "Terrence took it. He said he'd go make it right. He promised he'd come back. And he didn't." She nodded weakly. I walked to the window, watching a group of kids walk to school, laughing. It hit me. Jasmine used to laugh like that once, before men, before chaos, before heartbreak became her language. I finally said, "You can come home, but he can't. Not ever again." Her face softened with relief. "Really?" "But you'll work. You'll save. You'll pay back every cent, not because I need it, but because you need to understand what you've done." She nodded, tears falling again. "I'll do anything, Mom, I promise." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way her eyes darted to the duffel bag told me I was already too late. When I left her apartment an hour later, I glanced back through the hallway window. She was crying, but behind her, I saw the duffel bag still zipped tight, as if it was waiting for something or someone. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table, I couldn't shake the feeling that Terrence wasn't gone. He was out there, maybe watching, maybe plotting, because people like him didn't just disappear. They lingered like ghosts, always waiting for another chance to take what wasn't theirs. And deep down, I knew she hadn't told me everything. The betrayal wasn't over yet. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. "Mom, don't come looking for me. Please, I love you." Then another message from an unknown number. She made her choice. So did I. My hands went cold as ice. Terrence.
The messages burned into my phone screen long after I read them. Mom, don't come looking for me. Please, I love you. She made her choice. So did I. I must have reread those words 100 times, sitting in the dim light of my kitchen. My chest felt hollow, like something sacred had been scooped right out of me. I called her over and over again, but her number went straight to voicemail. By sunrise, I was pacing the floor. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. I didn't know where she was, but I knew one thing for sure. She was with him. And wherever Terrence went, trouble followed like a shadow. I went online and pulled up her social media. Nothing new on her feed. No stories, no updates, no signs of life. Then I checked his page. He'd made it private. Still, his last public post, from 3 days earlier, was a photo of him at a bar called the Blue Door. That's all I needed. I grabbed my purse and headed out, catching the first bus toward the south side of town. The ride took nearly an hour, but every stop felt like another needle pressing into my chest. Outside the window, the city looked different, colder, meaner. When I finally stepped off the bus, I could see the Blue Door from half a block away. The neon sign flickered weakly in the daylight, the windows tinted dark. A few men stood outside smoking, their eyes following me as I walked past. Inside, it smelled like spilled beer and old mistakes. I went straight to the bartender, a woman about my age, wearing a weary look I recognized. "You seen this man?" I asked, showing her a photo of Terrence on my phone. She glanced at it, then back at me. "He was here a couple nights ago, left with the girl." My heart jumped. "My daughter?" The woman shrugged. "Light skin, braids, denim jacket?" I nodded. "They got into some kind of argument outside. He was yelling, she was crying. Then they took off in a silver car. Silver, my silver car. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thanked her and stepped back outside, gripping my purse strap like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My hands trembled as I tried calling Jasmine again, straight to voicemail. I stood there on the sidewalk, cars rushing by, people living their lives as if mine hadn't just fallen apart. I wanted to scream, to cry, to rewind time to before that first phone call, but I couldn't. Instead, I walked. I didn't even know where I was going, just away from the bar, away from the shame, away from the thought that my baby girl was somewhere in that car choosing him over her own mother. By the time I got back home, the sky was turning orange with sunset. I sat on my porch, staring at the empty driveway again. The quiet was louder than any noise. My neighbor, Miss Carla, picked over the fence. "Renee, you okay, baby?" I forced a smile. "Just tired, Carla." She frowned. "You don't look tired. You look hurt." I swallowed hard. "My daughter. She sold my car." "What? Why?" "For love, apparently." Carla shook her head. "Honey, love don't take. It gives." Her words hit deep. I nodded slowly, even though my throat burned. "Yeah, I'm learning that the hard way." That night, I sat at the table again, staring at my hands. Hands that held Jasmine as a baby, wiped her tears, cooked her meals, braided her hair before school. Hands that worked overtime, that signed loan papers, that sacrificed again and again. Now those same hands were empty. I pulled out my old photo album, the one from when she was little. There she was, at 5 years old, holding a birthday balloon, grinning with cake on her cheeks. I remembered that day so clearly. She'd wished for a puppy. I couldn't afford one, so I got her a stuffed animal instead. She loved it anyway. She'd always been my reason to keep going. So how did we end up here? My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. My heart skipped. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" Static crackled. Then a low voice. "Terrence, you need to stop calling her." "Where is she?" "She's safe, but she doesn't want to talk to you." "That's not your decision to make. You took my car, my money, and now my daughter." "Calm down," he said, his tone darkly amused. "You act like it's about you. Jasmine's grown now. She wanted to help me. By stealing from her own mother?" He chuckled. "You always think you know what's best. Maybe she's tired of being controlled." "Controlled?" I laughed bitterly. "I raised her. I gave her everything I had. Yeah, well, now it's her turn to give something. The line went dead. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, tears spilling before I could stop them. Somewhere out there, my daughter was choosing him, and there was nothing I could do but wait and pray she survived long enough to realize what she had lost. That night, I locked my door, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark. My world had gone quiet again, too quiet. Then headlights flashed across the front window, brief and blinding. A car slowed. Outside, paused, then drove off. My heart started racing. Was it her? Him? Or just a reminder that peace was still out of reach? Whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning.
I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. Every sound outside, a car door slamming, a dog barking, made my pulse jump. By dawn, I gave up on rest and made a pot of coffee that tasted like regret. I sat at the table, watching the steam rise, waiting for the sun to warm the emptiness inside me. It didn't. My phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, no sign of Jasmine. By noon, I went down to the police station. I didn't want to, but I had to. The officer at the front desk, a young man with tired eyes, listened as I explained everything. The car, the money, the messages, the phone call from Terrence. He scribbled notes, then asked, "How old is your daughter, ma'am?" 22. He sighed, polite but detached. "So she's an adult." "I know that," I said sharply, "but she's in trouble. That man's using her." He nodded, trying to sound sympathetic. "We can file a report for the stolen vehicle, but if she gave him permission to use it, even under pressure, it gets complicated." "Complicated?" My voice cracked. "He manipulated her. He's draining her life, her future, everything." He gave me that soft, bureaucratic smile, the one that says you're on your own. "We'll see what we can do, ma'am." I left the station with a flimsy pink copy of the report and an ache that sat deep in my chest. It wasn't just the car. It was the realization that nobody was coming to fix this. Not the police, not the system, not even Jasmine. If I wanted her back, I'd have to do it myself. That evening, I went to Jasmine's old room. It still smelled faintly like her. Cocoa butter, shampoo, and something sweet. The walls were covered in photos. Polaroids of her and her friends, and in the corner, one of her and Terrence. He had his arm around her, a smirk on his face. She looked happy, but not real. Not like my Jasmine. There was a glaze in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. I tore the photo off the wall and stared at it. Then I flipped it over. On the back, in her handwriting, "He believes in me when no one else does." It broke me. I sat on her bed, clutching that photo, sobbing into my hands until my ribs hurt. Because that was the truth, wasn't it? Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped listening. I'd been so focused on protecting her that I never let her feel trusted. And he, that parasite, slipped right into that crack. The next day, I called Carla again. "You still got that cousin who works at the DMV?" She raised an eyebrow over the fence. "Girl, what you up to?" I need to find where my car might be." "Renee," she sighed, lowering her voice, "you sure you want to dig deeper? What if you find something you don't want to know?" I stared at her, my eyes hollow. "Carla, I've already lost everything. There's nothing left to lose." She didn't argue. That afternoon, she called back with news. "Your car got spotted by a parking enforcement camera 2 nights ago, somewhere near Fairfield Motel." I didn't even hang up properly. I grabbed my keys to my house, the only thing I still owned, and drove there using Carla's old Buick. The motel was a ghost town, the kind of place where curtains never opened and everyone looked over their shoulder. I parked down the street, heart thudding, scanning for silver paint and familiar license plates. And then I saw it. My car, parked crookedly near the back of the lot. The same little dent on the right bumper, the same sticker Jasmine had put on the window years ago. Good vibes only. I wanted to laugh and cry all at once, but before I could even step closer, the door to one of the rooms opened. Terrence stepped out. He looked rougher now,
scruff on his chin, shirt wrinkled, eyes red shot. He lit a cigarette and started walking toward my car. I ducked behind a tree, pulse pounding. I should have left. I should have called the police, but then I heard it. Jasmine's voice. "Terrence, wait!" She stumbled out behind him, wearing one of his hoodies, her face pale and tired. My throat tightened. "My little girl." He snapped at her. "Get inside." She shook her head weakly. "We need to talk about this." He turned fast, anger flashing. "I said, get inside." That's when I stepped out from behind the tree. "Don't you touch her!" They both froze. Jasmine's eyes went wide. "Mom?" Terrence cursed under his breath. "You shouldn't have came here." I ignored him, staring at her. "Baby, come home, please." She hesitated, tears forming. "I can't." "Yes, you can," I said, stepping closer. "You can walk away right now." He moved in front of her, blocking my path. "She ain't going nowhere." I glared at him. "You're done controlling her, you hear me?" He smirked. "You think you can just show up and fix everything. You're the reason she's here." "Terrence," Jasmine started, but he shoved her arm roughly. That was it. I lunged forward and slapped him hard across the face. "Don't you touch her again." He stumbled back, stunned, then laughed coldly. "You got some fire, lady." Before he could retaliate, Jasmine grabbed my arm. "Mom, please stop." I turned to her, trembling. "You don't belong here, baby. Look around. This isn't love." Tears streamed down her face. "I just wanted to help him. You can't help someone who keeps dragging you under. He's using you, Jasmine." Terrence's voice cut through. "Enough." He stepped toward us, but this time, Jasmine moved between us. "Don't," she said firmly. He blinked. "What?" I said, "Don't." Something shifted in her then. A spark of the girl I'd raised. The one who used to believe in right and wrong, not manipulation and fear. He scoffed, grabbed his keys and stormed off toward the parking lot's edge. "Fine, y'all deserve each other." We watched him get into my car, peel out and disappear down the street. The silence that followed was deafening. Jasmine collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know what else to do." I held her tight. "You don't have to explain. You're safe now. That's all that matters." But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The car was gone again, and so was every cent tied to it. Still, for the first time in weeks, I didn't care about the money because I had my daughter back, shaken, lost, but alive, and I wasn't letting anyone take her again. That night, as she slept on the couch beside me, I stayed awake watching the streetlights flicker outside. The world was still uncertain. The bills, the damage, the consequences, all of it waited for me in the morning. But for now, I breathed in the quiet. Because sometimes survival wasn't about getting back what was stolen. It was about protecting what was left. Morning came heavy and silent. Jasmine was still curled up on the couch, her face pale and swollen from crying. I stood in the doorway, a mug of coffee in my hand, watching her chest rise and fall. She looked so young again, fragile, almost childlike. But inside me, the storm hadn't passed. I was still shaking from anger, from fear, from everything that had been taken. When she finally woke, she stared at me for a long moment before whispering, "You hate me, don't you?" I shook my head slowly. "No, baby, I don't hate you. I hate what he did to you." Her eyes filled again. "I thought I was helping him, Mom. He said he'd pay you back double once the bets came through." "Bets?" I repeated, stunned. "You mean gambling?" She nodded, ashamed. "He said he was on a winning streak, that he just needed a few thousand more to cover the last round. When I told him I didn't have it, he said if I loved him, I'd find a way." My heart broke all over again. "So you sold my car," I whispered. She covered her face with her hands. "I'm sorry.
I didn't think he'd take it. I just gave him the papers to borrow for a few days. He promised he'd bring it back before you noticed. Jasmine, I sighed, sitting beside her. Love isn't supposed to cost you your dignity or your family. She looked up at me, tears trembling in her lashes. I know. I just wanted someone to stay. That line hit harder than anything Terrence ever said, because beneath all the chaos, that's what this was about. Abandonment. Her father had left when she was 9. My long hours at work had filled every space at home, and the world had taught her to mistake attention for affection. I reached out, brushing her hair behind her ear. You're not alone anymore, okay? We'll figure this out together. She nodded weakly, but I could see it. The guilt, the shame, the weight that would take time to lift. Later that day, I went back to the police station to update the report. The same young officer was there. When I told him Terrence now had the car, his eyes flickered with recognition. Terrence Coleman? He asked. I froze. Yes, you know him? He flipped through a few papers and grimaced. We've had complaints. Fraud, stolen property, a few assault reports. Nothing stuck long enough for conviction, but what? He hesitated. He's slick. Always uses other people's names, keeps things off record. By the time anyone figures it out, he's gone. A bitter laugh escaped me. Yeah. That sounds about right, he sighed. If the car crosses state lines, it'll be harder to track, but if you have any proof of ownership, we can flag it in the system. I handed him the old registration papers I dug out that morning. He scanned them, made copies, and promised to escalate it. It didn't make me feel any better. That night, Jasmine sat in her room scrolling through old photos, deleting most of them. Every click sounded like a tiny goodbye. I stood in the hallway listening. The silence between the clicks was heavier than the sound itself. When she came out later, she said softly, I called my job. I told them I'll work extra shifts. I want to help you pay back. I smiled sadly. That's not what I need, baby. I just need you to get better. But she insisted. You worked your whole life for that car. I need to make it right. Her voice was trembling, but there was resolve in it. 2 days later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Miss Thompson? A deep voice asked. Yes. Who's this? This is Officer Hayes from the Fairfield precinct. We found your vehicle. My knees almost gave out. Where? It was abandoned near a pawn shop just off Highway 84. Looks like it was used as collateral for a gambling loan. You'll need to come in to identify it. I hung up and drove there with Jasmine beside me, both of us silent the whole way. When we arrived, my heart sank. The car was there, or what was left of it. The tires were gone, the stereo ripped out, the seats torn. It was stripped of everything valuable, left like a carcass in the sun. Jasmine covered her mouth, crying softly. Oh, Mom. I stared at it, my throat closing. That's okay. It's just metal. But it wasn't. It was every late night shift, every dollar I'd saved, every morning I drove her to school, every little piece of the life I'd built on my own. Now, it was just wreckage. The officer handed me a clipboard. You can file for insurance compensation, but given the condition, I barely heard the rest. Jasmine turned to me, voice trembling. He did this. He ruined everything. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't the same naive girl who'd handed him those papers. She was angry now, hurt but alive. And I realized something. Maybe this destruction was what it took for her to see. That night, back home, I poured 2 cups of tea and sat with Jasmine at the kitchen table. We can't change what he did, I said quietly, but we can change what happens next. She nodded. What do you mean? I mean, we rebuild. You and me. We start over. Maybe we can't afford a car right now, but we still have this house. We still have each other. That's something. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. I don't deserve you. I reached for her hand. Yes, you do. You just forgot how much you mattered. We sat there for a long time, the hum of the ridge filling the silence. Outside, a soft rain began to fall. For a while, we didn't speak. We didn't need to. Sometimes forgiveness isn't loud. It's not shouting or crying or dramatic reunions. It's just two people sitting at a kitchen table deciding to start again. And as I looked at my daughter, her eyes tired but open, I realized something I almost forgotten. Love doesn't mean rescuing someone from their mistakes. It means staying beside them long enough to help them learn from them.
I thought that finding the car, even stripped bare, would bring me closure. Instead, it felt like the universe had handed me a mirror, forcing me to see every crack I'd ignored in myself and in Jasmine. The days that followed blurred together. I went back to my shift at the diner, trying to pretend everything was normal. Customers laughed, coffee poured, plates clattered, but my body was moving through motions while my mind kept drifting back to that empty parking lot, to the car that represented everything I'd once thought I controlled. Jasmine, on the other hand, started changing in quiet ways. She woke up early, applied for extra hours at the clothing store, even started leaving notes on the fridge. Dinner's on me tonight. Don't wait up. Closing shift. It wasn't much, but it was effort. Real effort. Still, every time I saw her phone light up, I felt my stomach tighten. I couldn't help it. I was waiting for his name to appear again, waiting for the moment she'd slip back into the same darkness. One evening, as I folded laundry on the couch, she came into the room holding her phone. "Mom, Terrence messaged me." I froze, the towel halfway folded in my hands. "What did he say?" She bit her lip, scrolling. "He said he's sorry. Said he's trying to get clean, that he'll make things right if I meet him." I dropped the towel. "Absolutely not. Mom!" "No." My voice came out sharper than I meant, but I didn't care. "You're not going anywhere near him, Jasmine." Her face flushed with frustration. "I just want closure. Closure doesn't come from the same person who burned your life down," I said quietly. She glared at me, eyes glassy. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand better than you think. I spent half my life mistaking people's apologies for change. You don't heal by reopening the wound." Her jaw tightened, and she turned away, storming into her room. The door slammed, and for a moment I stood there trembling, not from anger this time, but fear. The fear of losing her again. I went to bed that night praying she'd listen. Morning came with an empty silence. Her bedroom door was open, the bed empty. On the table, a note. "Mom, please don't worry. I just need to see him once to say goodbye. I'll be fine. I promise." My vision blurred as I read it. I grabbed my keys and phone, dialing every number I could think of. No answer. I called her coworker. She wasn't at the store. Called her best friend. Hadn't seen her. Finally, I called the same detective who helped with the stolen car report. "It's my daughter," I said, my voice cracking. "She went to meet the man who scammed her. I think she's in trouble." He asked for Terrence's full name and promised to send out a patrol if they picked up his vehicle anywhere nearby. I paced the house, heart pounding, every passing second stretching like an eternity. By late afternoon, my phone rang. "Miss Thompson? This is Officer Hayes again. We located your daughter." I nearly dropped the phone. Is she okay?" "She's safe," he said quickly. "We found her at a diner off Highway 62. She was upset but unharmed." Relief washed over me so hard I had to sit down. Thank God. He hesitated. "But Terrence wasn't there when we arrived. She says he took her phone and wallet before leaving. She was waiting for him to come back." My hands clenched into fists. Of course he did. When I got to the station, Jasmine was sitting in a small room wrapped in one of those gray police blankets. Her eyes were red, her hair tangled, and when she saw me, she broke down sobbing. "I'm sorry, Mom. You were right. He never meant to make things right." I knelt in front of her, pulling her into my arms. "You're home now. That's all that matters." She cried harder. "He said he'd changed. He even cried. And when I said I didn't have money, he took my purse and ran. I feel so stupid." I tilted her chin up gently. "Don't ever call yourself stupid. You loved the wrong person. That's all." Her jaw shook as she whispered, "He said if I tell the police, he'll come after me." I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in my voice. "Then let him come. because he won't find the same woman he fooled before, and he sure as hell won't hurt my daughter again. Over the next few days, the police issued a warrant for Terrence. They didn't find him, but knowing there was an active case gave me a strange peace. Jasmine deleted her social media accounts, changed her number, and started going to therapy. I went with her to the first few sessions, sitting quietly while she unpacked her guilt. One afternoon, after therapy, we sat on a park bench, watching kids play. The air was soft, filled with laughter, something peaceful in the distance that I hadn't felt in months. "Mom," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "why do people hurt the ones who love them most?" I thought for a moment before answering. "Because love is the only thing they think they can take without paying for." She nodded, slowly, eyes glistening. "But it's not free, is it?" "No," I said softly. "It costs something, but the trick is making sure it doesn't cost you." She leaned her head on my shoulder and I wrapped my arm around her. The wind picked up, rustling the trees, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt a fragile kind of peace settle inside me. It wasn't over. We still had bills to pay, therapy to attend, and wounds to heal. But it was beginning again. The kind of beginning that doesn't come from pretending things never happened, but from surviving them and learning who you are on the other side. And as the sun set over that quiet park, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope.
It's strange how life quiets down after a storm. The days felt slower, softer, like the world was giving us space to breathe again. Jasmine still flinched at unknown phone numbers, still double-checked the locks before bed, but she was beginning to smile again. A small one, hesitant at first, but real. We'd started a new routine. Mornings were hers. She went to work early at the clothing store. Evenings were mine. I'd pick up a shift at the diner. Somewhere in between, we shared coffee, exchanged tired smiles, and talked about everything except Terrence. That was progress. But late one night, as I was closing the register, my coworker Maria looked at me and said, "You've lost weight, Renee. You okay?" I laughed weakly. "Stress diet." She gave me that look, the one women give each other when they know pain too well. "You should do something for yourself. Not for Jasmine, not for work. For you." Her words stuck with me. On the drive home, I thought about it. When was the last time I'd done something just for me? Not to survive, not to fix, not to protect, but to live. The answer was a silence so heavy, I could almost hear it. The next morning, I made a decision. When Jasmine left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and typed local adult classes near me: art, music, cooking, writing. I stared at the list, scrolling aimlessly until one word caught my eye: community choir. Thursdays, 7 p.m. Mama used to say I had a voice like a church morning. I hadn't sung since her funeral, but something about it made my chest ache in the best way. That Thursday, I stood outside the local rec center with trembling hands and a heart that didn't quite know what to expect. Inside, a dozen people, all ages, all colors, all stories, were laughing, tuning guitars, flipping through sheet music. "First time?" a tall woman with silver braids asked, smiling warmly. "Yeah," I said, my voice catching. "It's been a while." "Then you're in the right place," she said, handing me a folder, and just like that, I was singing again. At first, my voice shook, but the more I sang, the stronger it became. It wasn't perfect, cracked in spots, breathy in others, but it was mine. And as we harmonized, I felt something shift deep inside me. The pain didn't leave, but it softened, like a bruise that finally stopped throbbing. After choir, I came home humming, something I hadn't done in years. Jasmine was waiting up, curled on the couch with a blanket and a movie playing softly. She looked up and grinned. "You're glowing, Mom." I laughed. "It's just sweat." "Uh-huh," she teased. "No, seriously, you look happy." I sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I think I forgot what that felt like. She leaned against me and we watched the movie in silence, the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. The next few weeks rolled by with surprising calm. I sung every Thursday. Jasmine went to therapy on Wednesdays. Sundays, we made pancakes together. But healing isn't a straight line. One evening, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table, shaking. "Mom," she whispered. "He called." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Terrence." Her voice trembled. "He called from a blocked number. He says he's sorry and wants to meet again." My heart pounded. "And what did you say?" She looked up, her eyes steady this time. I said no. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Good," I said softly. "That's good, baby." She nodded. tears glistening but unfallen. I thought saying no would make me sad, but it didn't. It made me free. I smiled, proud and aching all at once. That's because it's not sadness you're feeling. It's strength. She exhaled shakily. Do you think it's really over? I thought about it for a moment, then said, maybe not yet, but you're finally walking away, and that's how endings begin. The next morning, I got a call from Officer Hayes. Miss Thompson, he said, we've located Terrence Coleman. He was arrested last night in another state for attempted fraud. You might be contacted to testify given your report. A cold satisfaction settled over me. Thank you for letting me know. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. Justice wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it arrived quietly, in a phone call, in a deep breath, in the peace of knowing you finally made it through. When Jasmine came out of her room rubbing her eyes, I told her what happened. She blinked, stunned. He's really gone? Looks like it, I said. She didn't jump or cry or celebrate. She just whispered, good. And then she hugged me, tight, fierce, grateful. That night we sat on the porch, listening to the crickets and the faint hum of the city beyond. The air smelled like rain, the sky soft and bruised with twilight. I used to think love was supposed to fix people, Jasmine said quietly, but maybe it's supposed to help you grow instead. I smiled. That's the truth, baby. She leaned against me just like she was when she was little. And as the wind rustled the leaves and the stars began to show, I realized something. Healing doesn't sound like silence or shouting or tears. It sounds like breathing again, like singing again, like hearing your own heart and finally trusting it to beat. A year later, my life looked completely different, quieter, steadier, and somehow softer around the edges. The house was smaller now, but it was mine. The smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of rain on the windows, the plants thriving on the sill, every detail whispered one truth. Peace had finally moved in. Jasmine and I had grown in ways neither of us expected. She was taking evening classes at the community college, studying early childhood education. She worked part-time at a daycare, and every afternoon she came home with stories about her little chaos monsters, as she called them. And me? I still worked at the diner, but I also joined the choir permanently. Last Christmas, we even performed at the town square, and Jasmine filmed the whole thing, tears shining in her eyes. If you told me 2 years ago that I'd stand under holiday lights singing Silent Night without feeling bitterness, I'd have laughed in disbelief. But there I was, my voice steady, my heart unburdened. One crisp morning in March, an envelope came in the mail. No return address. I almost tossed it out, but something about the handwriting stopped me. Sharp, familiar, careful. Inside was a short letter. Renee, I don't expect forgiveness, but I owe you truth. I wasn't just gambling. I was desperate. I took loans from people I shouldn't have, and Jasmine thought she was saving me. She didn't deserve the weight I put on her. I know I can't make it right, but I wanted you to know she never meant to hurt you. She only wanted to protect me. Terrence. I read it 3 times. The first out of shock, the second out of anger, the third out of something else. It wasn't closure. Not really, but it was honesty, however late. When Jasmine came home, I showed her the letter. She froze, reading it silently. Then she folded it neatly and set it aside. I don't care what his reasons were. He still lied. He used me, and I let him. Her voice didn't break this time. It was calm, grounded. I reached across the table and took her hand. You loved, baby. That's not a mistake. She blinked hard, and for the first time in a long while, I saw no shame in her eyes, only resolve. Later that evening, we sat in the living room watching the sunset spill across the floorboards. I keep thinking, she said softly, what if I just told you the truth earlier? I shook my head. Then maybe I'd have stopped you. Maybe not. But either way, you still would have had to learn what you learned. And you did. You learned your worth. Jasmine gave a small smile. You're really not angry anymore, are you? I thought about it. About the nights I cried until my eyes burned. About the empty driveway where my car used to be. About the fear
that I'd lost her. Not just physically, but emotionally. I admitted I was for a long time. But anger keeps you tied to what hurt you. I had to let it go to make room for something else. What? Grace. She leaned into me, whispering, "I'm not sure I deserve that." "You do," I said, holding her close. "We both do." Weeks passed, and life found a gentle rhythm again. The choir began rehearsing for a spring concert, and Jasmine got promoted to assistant teacher. Then one evening, while going through old boxes, I found a photo of us, taken years ago before everything fell apart. We were sitting on the hood of my car, laughing like we had the whole world ahead of us. I stared at that picture for a long time. That car had been more than a vehicle. It had been a promise of independence, of security, of freedom. Losing it had felt like losing myself. But as I looked at Jasmine's smile frozen in that photo, I realized something. I hadn't lost freedom. I'd redefined it. Freedom wasn't about owning a car or a house. It was about no longer needing someone's approval to feel safe. It was about driving through life, this time by my own hands. A few days later, we decided to visit Mama's grave. Jasmine hadn't been there since before the betrayal, and I could tell she was nervous. We brought flowers, lilies and yellow roses, her favorite, and stood quietly as the wind swept through the trees. After a long silence, Jasmine said, "I'm sorry, Grandma, for everything. I hurt Mom. I lost myself, but I'm trying to be better." Her voice cracked just once. I placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "She'd be proud of you." She nodded, tears streaming freely now. "Do you think she forgave me?" I smiled softly. She never stopped. We stood there until the sun dipped low and the air turned cool. There was no dramatic revelation, no thunderclap, just peace. And sometimes that's all the healing you need. When we got home, Jasmine disappeared into her room for a while. I heard her rummaging through drawers, papers rustling. Then she came out, holding an envelope. "This is for you." I frowned, taking it carefully. Inside was a check, not large, but enough to make my heart swell. "Where did you get this?" "I've been saving for months. It's not enough for a car, but it's a start for your car, the one that's yours again." Tears blurred my vision. "Jasmine," she shook her head, "you gave up so much for me. It's my turn now." I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. "You don't owe me anything, baby." "I know, but I want to." That night, I sat on the porch again, watching the stars scatter across the sky. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about excusing what happened. It was about reclaiming the space that pain used to occupy. It was about learning to love again, yourself, your life, and even the ones who once broke your heart. Inside, Jasmine laughed at something on her phone, a light, unguarded laugh that filled the house like music. And for the first time in a long while, I laughed too. Not out of relief, not out of disbelief, but because after everything, the betrayal, the loss, the heartbreak, we were still here and we were okay. 6 months later, life had settled into something that finally resembled peace. The diner felt like a second home now. The regulars knew my name. The coffee machine hissed like a heartbeat, and the radio always played soft old songs from the 80s that somehow felt like they were written just for me. Jasmine had finished her first semester at college and was doing better than I'd ever dared hope. She talked about opening her own daycare someday, a place where kids could feel safe even when life at home wasn't perfect. One quiet evening after closing time, I sat at the counter doing paperwork when I heard a voice behind me. "Still burning the midnight oil, Miss Renee?" I turned, and there was Mr. Harris, our old neighbor from Mama Street. He looked older now, his hair completely white, but his smile was the same gentle curve it had always been. "I was just thinking about you," I said, standing to hug him. "How's the neighborhood? Not the same without your mama's roses," he said softly, "or your laughter echoing from that porch." Something inside me twisted, a nostalgic eek, warm and sad all at once. He studied me for a long moment, then said, "You ever think about coming back?" "Back to the old place. It's still there, you know. New owners fixed it up real nice. Even kept your mama's rose bush." I felt my throat tighten. "I don't know if I could." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes going back isn't about the place, Renee. It's about reclaiming the parts of you that never should have been taken." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the house,
The chipped white fence, the porch swing, the old oak tree that leaned just a little too far towards the driveway. And I thought about the woman I used to be when I left that house. Proud, tired, but still believing love could fix everything. Maybe it was time to go back. Not to relive the pain, but to make peace with it. 2 weeks later, Jasmine and I made the trip. We packed sandwiches, filled the gas tank, and drove out to the little neighborhood that had once been our whole world. As we turned onto Elm Street, I felt my heart stutter. There it was, our house. Fresh paint, new shutters, a tidy garden out front. But under the neatness, I still saw the bones of what once was. Jasmine whispered, "It looks smaller." I said, "Everything does when you've grown." We parked across the street and just sat there for a while, watching a little boy ride his bike up and down the driveway. His laughter carried across the air, bright and free. After a few minutes, a woman came out, mid-30s, kind eyes, holding a mug of coffee. She noticed us sitting there and smiled politely before going back inside. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel envy. Just gratitude. That house had been home once, but so much of it had also been pain. It was where I learned how to love and how easily love could break you. Jasmine looked at me. "Do you want to go talk to them?" I thought about it, about asking to see inside, about standing again in Mama's kitchen, but then I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "We're not here to reclaim walls. We're here to remember who we were and who we became." She smiled, eyes glistening. "You're really okay letting it go, aren't you?" "I think," I exhaled slowly, "I already did." We sat on the curb for a while longer, eating our sandwiches and laughing about old memories. The time Jasmine tried to bake cookies and filled the kitchen with smoke. The time Mama locked herself out and climbed through the window. The sun began to dip, painting the sky in soft oranges and golds. Then Jasmine pulled something from her bag, a small glass jar filled with rose petals from Grandma's bush. I took them the last time we lived here. Thought maybe we could leave them somewhere. My heart swelled. Together, we walked to the corner of the yard near the fence. The rose bush was still there, older now, branches twisted, but still alive. We knelt down and sprinkled the petals into the soil for every goodbye that broke us and for every hello that made us whole again. When we stood up, the wind picked up gently, swirling the petals like tiny blessings. And in that moment, I swear I could almost feel Mama there, warm, approving, and proud. On the drive home, Jasmine reached across and took my hand. "Mom?" she said. "Yeah? I think I finally understand what you meant when you said forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I smiled, keeping my eyes on the road. "Oh, it means you stop carrying the story like a wound. You carry it like a lesson." I squeezed her hand. "Exactly." For a long time, we didn't say anything more. The radio played softly, an old song Mama used to hum. Outside, the road stretched out ahead, endless and full of promise. When we got home that night, I parked the car in our driveway, our new driveway, and sat there a moment longer, watching Jasmine unload groceries from the back seat. This car wasn't as fancy as my old one, but it was ours, paid for, earned, rebuilt, just like us. Before heading inside, I looked up at the sky, the same one that had hung over all my heartbreak, all my hope. I whispered softly to myself, "Thank you for not ending me when I thought I was finished." Because that's what life does. It doesn't end when something breaks. It just changes shape. Sometimes the shape it takes afterwards is even more beautiful. And as the porch light flicked on, casting its warm glow across the front steps, I finally understood home isn't where you live, it's where you heal. It had been almost a year since the night Terrence disappeared with my car and shattered what was left of my trust. Life, somehow, had found its rhythm again. I wasn't rich, I wasn't settled, but I was standing, and that meant more to me than anything money could buy. Jasmine and I were doing better. She was working part-time at a daycare while taking classes in early childhood education. Watching her handle those kids with patience and kindness made me realize something. Even through all her mistakes, she still carried the best parts of me. One Sunday morning, after church, we stopped by a small coffee shop near downtown. Jasmine had just finished showing me a sketchbook full of ideas for a children's center she wanted to start someday. I smiled. "You know, you might just be onto something, baby." She grinned, her dimples flashing. Well, I learned from the best. That moment small, warm, ordinary, made all the nights I cried feel distant, like they belonged to another life. Then, just as we stood to leave, I froze. Through the window, across the street, I saw him, Terrence. He was thinner, scruffier, with a worn gray hoodie and jeans that had seen better days. But I knew that face. The same easy smile, the same charm that had fooled both me and my daughter. Jasmine's back was turned. She didn't see him. I did. And for a split second, my instinct was to run outside, to demand answers. Why? How? After all this time? But then I saw something in his posture. His shoulders slumped, his steps slow, unsure. He wasn't the smooth-talking boy anymore. He looked defeated. He walked into the gas station next door, head down. Jasmine caught my expression. "Mom, what's wrong?" I hesitated, heart setting. "It's nothing, baby. Just deja vu." She looked at me funny, but let it go. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how strange it felt to see the ghost of your pain in the daylight. Real. Breathing, smaller than the memory you built around them. For the first time, I didn't feel hatred. I felt pity. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and stared out the window. For years, I had prayed for closure, but maybe closure wasn't a knock on the door or an apology. Maybe it was just seeing the past and realizing it no longer had power over you. Later that week, while I was finishing my shift at the diner, a man came in asking for me. "Renee Thompson?" he said. "Yes." He handed me a letter from Terrence Carter. My stomach twisted as I opened it. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. "Miss Thompson, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I hurt you and Jasmine, and I won't make excuses for that. I've been sober for 8 months. Got a job at a repair shop. I'm trying to pay back what I can. Please accept this small amount. I'm sorry. Terrence." Folded inside the letter was a check for $3,500. My hands trembled as I read it again. That money wouldn't fix the past. It wouldn't erase the nights I spent walking instead of driving, or the humiliation of telling people what he'd done. But still, something inside me cracked open. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the space where forgiveness could grow. When I showed Jasmine later that night, her face tightened. "Mom, you're not going to take that, are you? After what he did," I sighed. "It's not about taking it, baby. It's about letting it mean something different now. Not debt, just proof that I made it through." She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "You're stronger than I'll ever be." I smiled softly. "No, sweetheart. I just finally stopped trying to rewrite the past." 2 weeks later, I mailed the check back. Unsigned, uncashed. All I included was a note that said, "I hope you use this to stay clean. That'll be worth more than any dollar you could give me." And when I dropped that envelope in the mailbox, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. 1 month later, Jasmine surprised me with a gift. A small, used silver car. Nothing fancy. A little scratched, a little slow, but reliable. She had been saving for months. "It's yours, Mom," she said, grinning from ear to ear. "You deserve to drive again." I broke down crying right there in the parking lot. Not because of the car, but because of what it meant. That my little girl had learned what love really looked like. And for the first time in years, I didn't see the daughter who'd betrayed me. I saw the woman she was becoming. Strong, responsible, grounded. That night, I took the new car for a drive. Windows down, gospel music playing low, air cool against my face. The streetlights blurred past, each one like a heartbeat saying, "You made it, you made it, you made it." And somewhere between one red light and the next, I realized forgiveness isn't a single act. It's a road, one you take 1 mile at a time. I didn't know if I'd ever see Terrence again, but I knew that whatever came next, I was done being defined by what he or anyone had taken from me, because the truth was simple. I had already taken it back. It's strange how pain changes shape over time. At first, it's a storm, loud, violent, endless. Then it becomes a dull ache, something you carry without realizing. But one day, if you're lucky, it turns into something else entirely. A compass. That's what mine had become. I had started volunteering twice a week at the Women's Community Center downtown. Most days, I helped organize food drives or fill out housing applications for women starting over. But every once in a while, someone would walk in whose story felt like an echo of mine, too close for comfort. That morning, it was a young woman named Keisha, barely 22, shoulders hunched, eyes red from crying. She clutched her purse like it was the only thing she had left. "Can I talk to someone?" she asked softly. "Of course," I said, guiding her to a small table by the window. Her voice shook as she spoke. "My boyfriend, he took my car, said he'd fix it, but he sold it, and now he's gone." I sat very still. She looked up at me, tears spilling over. "I know it's stupid. I thought he loved me." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I saw myself in her. The same confusion, the same heartbreak, the same shame that wasn't hers to carry. I took a deep breath. "It's not stupid, honey. It's human." Her eyes flicked up to meet mine. "You don't know what it's like." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I do." And then, for the first time in my life, I told my story, not as a wound, but as a lesson. I told her about Terrence, about the nights I couldn't sleep, the weeks I walked to work, the way Jasmine and I fought until we didn't speak, about the moment I found the strength to stop waiting for apologies and start writing my own ending. Keisha listened without interrupting. When I finished, she wiped her eyes and whispered, "So, what did you do after all that?" "I started small," I said. "Got up, made breakfast, went to work, told the truth when people asked. One small thing a day, until I wasn't scared anymore." She let out a shaky laugh. "That sounds harder than it should." I nodded. "It is, but it's worth it." Before she left, she hugged me. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "You make me feel like maybe I can come back from this." I smiled. "You already started." That evening, I sat in my car, in the parking lot, watching the sunset melt into orange and violet. My reflection in the windshield looked softer now, older, yes, but lighter somehow. I turned on the radio and smiled as an old Luther Vandross song filled the air. The lyrics felt like they were written just for me. A house is not a home when there's no one there, except now there was. When I got home, Jasmine was sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by brochures. "Mom," she said, grinning, "I got accepted into the State University's childcare program. I start in the fall." I dropped my purse and hugged her so tight she squeaked, "Oh, baby, I'm so proud of you." She filled with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." I brushed her cheek. "You did this on your own, Jasmine. You earned this." Then she handed me something small, a folded sheet of paper. I wrote something for class. "It's about forgiveness." I unfolded it and read, "Forgiveness isn't letting people off the hook. It's letting yourself breathe again. My mother taught me that." Tears blurred the words. I looked up, heart aching in the best possible way. "You have no idea what that means to me," I whispered. She smiled. "Actually, Mom, I think I do." That night, as I washed the dinner dishes, I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been. The mother desperate to save her daughter, the woman betrayed, the fighter who refused to stay broken. And now, maybe, I was becoming something more. Someone who could take the pain and turn it into purpose. When I went to bed, I said a quiet prayer, not for things to go back to how they were, but for the courage to keep becoming who I was meant to be. The following week, Keisha stopped by the center again. She was smiling this time. Small, hesitant, but real. "I got a job interview," she said proudly. "And I walked here. Didn't cry once." I laughed. That's what I call progress. Then she hesitated. "You think I'll ever stop feeling angry?" I looked her in the eye. "The anger never disappears, honey. It just stops driving." She let that sink in, nodded slowly, then hugged me again before heading out. When the door closed behind me, I sat in silence for a long time, tears running down my face. Not sad tears, but grateful ones. Because somewhere between the pain and the healing, I'd become the kind of woman I needed all those years ago. And that, I realized, was the real miracle. Later that evening, Jasmine and I sat on the porch, sipping sweet tea, under the soft hum of crickets. The air was warm, the moon bright. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You ever wish things had gone differently?" I thought a long moment. "Sometimes," I said honestly, "but if they had, we wouldn't be here, and I like where here is." She smiled, closing her eyes. "Me too, Mom." The porch light flickered softly above us.
catching the silver in my hair. I didn't try to hide it anymore. And in that quiet, golden moment, I realized the story wasn't about losing a car. It wasn't even about Terrence or betrayal. It was about finding my way back to myself. It was a quiet Sunday morning when the letter arrived. A thin, beige envelope with my name written in a handwriting I hadn't seen in years, Terrence's. For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. My hands trembled as I turned it over. No return address, just a faint coffee stain near the corner. Jasmine walked into the kitchen, holding her mug. "Mom, you okay?" I stared at the envelope. "It's from him." Her eyes widened. "You're not going to read it, are you?" I looked at her, my daughter, wiser now, steadier, and smiled faintly. "I think I need to." She nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay right here." I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the envelope with a butter knife. Inside was one page, folded twice. His words were careful, neat, too neat. "Renee, I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was wrong, and no excuse can fix that." I panicked. I thought I could get the money back before you found out, but it all went bad fast. "I'm sorry for everything, for hurting you, for ruining what we had, and for making Jasmine hate me. I've been trying to get my life straight. I've got a job in another city. I don't want anything from you. I just needed you to know I think about you. Every day. I hope you're happy. You deserve that more than anyone I know. Terrence." I read it 3 times. Each line felt like an echo from a life that no longer fit. The old me, the woman who cried herself to sleep wondering why, might have broken down, clinging to his words like a lifeline, but I wasn't her anymore. I folded the letter, slipped it back into the envelope, and set it aside. Jasmine watched quietly, waiting for my reaction. "Well?" she finally asked. I exhaled. "He's sorry, but sorry doesn't rebuild what he destroyed." She nodded. "So what are you going to do with it?" I smiled gently. "File it where it belongs. In the past." I walked over to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a small box, the one where I kept old keys, receipts, and letters that no longer hurt to touch, and placed it inside. Then I closed the drawer. That simple. And just like that, the weight that had sat on my chest for years finally shifted. A week later, I stood outside the bakery I'd helped the community center women reopen. They'd asked me to speak at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I almost said no. Public speaking wasn't my thing. But something inside me whispered, "Say yes." There were folding chairs set up in neat rows, balloons tied to the handrails, and a crowd of smiling faces. Women I'd worked beside, women who had once walked in crying, women who were now laughing again. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the microphone. The late afternoon sun bathed everything in warm gold. I used to think losing something meant I'd failed. But sometimes loss is how life clears space for something new. I lost money, trust, a car, but what I gained was a lesson. Never mistake silence for weakness, and never let betrayal make you bitter. A few people nodded. One woman in the back wiped her eyes. I stand here today, not as a victim, but as proof that even the deepest pain can become power if you let it teach you. When the applause came, it was gentle, but real. The kind that fills you, not flatters you. Afterward, Keisha came up smiling wide. "You killed it, Miss Renee." I laughed. "You sure? I was shaking in my shoes. You sounded like you owned the world." Maybe, for the first time, I did. That evening, Jasmine and I celebrated with takeout Chinese and an old movie marathon. Halfway through, she reached over, grabbed my hand, and said, "Mom, I got something to tell you." I muted the TV. "What is it?" "She met someone," she said, blushing. "He's good, Mom. Like, really good." I raised an eyebrow. "How good?" She laughed. "The kind who makes me want to be better." I squeezed her hand. "Then you're already doing it right." She smiled. "You're not mad?" "Mad? No. Just promise me one thing. Don't ever give up your peace for someone else's potential." Her eyes softened. "I won't. Not after everything you taught me." We hugged, and I realized that maybe my healing had become hers too. Months later, I took a solo drive down the coast, the kind of drive I'd always dreamed of but never made time for. The road unwound before me like a promise. My new car, paid for in full, hummed under my hands. The sky opened wide and blue. For once, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was driving towards something, myself. I stopped at a beach overlook, stepped out, and let the ocean wind whip through my hair. It carried away everything that had once chained me to grief. I thought about Terrence, about Jasmine, about all the women who'd walked into that center broken and left whole. And then, softly, to no one but the sea, I said, I forgive you, but I remember. It wasn't anger anymore. It was release. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about pretending the past never happened. It was about choosing not to live there anymore. I smiled, watching the waves crash and pull back, relentless, beautiful, free. The horizon burned gold, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Epilogue. A year later, Jasmine graduated with honors. The ceremony was small, held outdoors under a canopy of oak trees. When her name was called, I stood and clapped until my hands hurt. She looked out into the crowd, found me, and smiled. That same little girl grin I hadn't seen in years. Afterward, she handed me her graduation cap. On the inside, she had written in silver marker, "For Mom," who taught me that losing everything isn't the end, it's the beginning. I pressed the cap to my chest, tears spilling freely. And just like that, the story that started with loss ended with legacy. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't a gift you give the one who hurt you. It's the one you give yourself when you finally choose to live again.